All right, my friends, we're going to talk about 529 plans and estate planning from an article I came across here this morning while I was doing my morning reading. And so I want to share this one with you because I think it's actually pretty important. I haven't focused much on 529 plans on the Heritage Wealth Planning YouTube channel. To my chagrin, I need to start because 529 plans have such a unique opportunity. If and only if your own retirement plan is situated, fully funded, and you have excess cash flow because you don't have any debt. Do not start a 529 plan in lieu of doing your Roth IRA, your own, for the love of Mary. Do not do it if you haven't taken advantage of your employer match on your 401k or 403b, TSP, whatever you have. No. Do not do a 529 plan if you're paying credit card debt, car loan debt, all that too. No. Pay debt off. However, there are a certain segment of us, not me, who has positive cash flow after debt, after funding their retirement plans, and you've got to understand how a 529 plan can play a role. Or even better, if you're a grandparent, the 529 plan offers the most incredible estate planning technique you've ever seen in your life, which let's dive right into it right now. So as always, welcome to the Heritage Wealth Plan channel, the place you come to learn about 529 plans, estate planning, tax planning. So if you like what you see, subscribe down below. You see my little bull back there. I think we got that from a friend when he moved from Texas. We left Texas because, man, my wife loved Texas. She's not a native, but, man, she'd move back in a heartbeat, but just a little bit too hot for me. Maybe one day East Texas, who knows, but I don't think so. All right, so let's dive right into this. This is from AICPA, and they write these articles for various firms. Actually, this is an AICPA. This is Broadridge. Real quick, guys, and for those of you who are not in the know, Broadridge Investor Communication Solution is a newsletter that advisors, I guess, I didn't realize CPAs had it too, could pay for to offer as their own quote unquote newsletter. My drawback, my problem with Broadridge is I see these on LinkedIn all the time as if a guy or a lady wrote them himself, and they didn't. They're just taking the info from Broadridge, putting their name up here. In this case, CPA, Joe Schmo's the CPA. They put it out there for public consumption, again, as if they wrote it. I don't have a problem with that. I used to use Broadridge when I subscribed to them because they have some good stuff here, without question. Here's one right here. But just in the back of your mind, if you come across an article that some guy from a big firm wrote, and it looks similar to this in the style, he might want to double check. Say, did you really write that? All right, so I do want to talk about this, and a couple of things going on. 529 plans are no longer. This article was written, I think, in 2013, and 529 plans, because the Trump tax bill, have changed remarkably, even much more beneficial than they were back then. Now you can use it for private school, homeschooling. You can use it. Actually, maybe you can't use it for homeschooling. They had to get rid of a program on, I think it was homeschooling now, but it is absolutely used for private school, for not just colleges either. For secondary school? Is that high school? You can use it for anything, but I don't think you can use it for homeschooling. I think they had to get rid of that provision to get someone on the fence who wasn't going to vote for the bill. I can't remember. But anyway, it's still much, much more beneficial than it was back then. So qualified education is all encompassing for qualified education, not solely to call it undergrad or post or graduate school. All right, so now, I will take an issue whether or not you should actually go to college. That's up to you. At the end of the day, I don't think college is all it's cracked up to be anymore. And I think most people get that, not for the expense that you're paying. But I do want to talk about the special gifting feature of 529 plans. We're going to briefly touch on this just because it is important to know. Remember, my friends, unless you have over, I think it's $12 million now in your total estate, you are not going to be subject to any gift tax. All right. So you could stroke me a check today for $10 million. You do have to file a one-page IRS Form 709. The 9 is the round part is above. A 6, the round part's below. So a 9 means it's while you're alive. A 706 means it's while you're dead. That is your estate. That's your death tax document, the form. 709 is your gift tax form. So just keep that in the back of your mind. 9 means it's above the ground, which means it's anything you have to file if you give a gift above and beyond your annual exclusion amount. And I think it's 14, maybe it's 15 this year. I just don't know, but it's right around 14 or 15,000. So if you stroke me a check for $1 million today, you would have to fill out a one-page IRS Form 709. How much of that $1 million will be subject to gift tax? At least for the feds, the answer is nothing. Nothing. You don't pay any gift tax on it at all, unless you have already used your lifetime exclusion. So again, you have 12 million, and I don't even know what it is anymore, but it's a significant amount of money. If you haven't used that 12 million bucks or 8 million bucks, whatever it is, that $1 million you stroke to me is free and clear of any federal gift tax. That is a fact. You don't have to file but one form, IRS form 709, and that's it. Your state might be different. Most states don't have a gift tax. All right. So what a 529 does is allow you to take 5 years of your annual exclusion. And again, I think that's 15,000 this year, whatever it is. So 5 times 15, well, let's take my trusty calculator. That means you can put 15 times 5, $75,000 into a 529 plan in one fell swoop and not have to file the 709 form simply because you have 5 years of gift tax exemptions when you're fully funding a 529. If you're married filing jointly, you can do it and your spouse can do it. So $150,000 can go into that 529 without being subject to gift tax, if that makes sense. And again, even if you did it without a 529, it's also not subject to gift tax. Other than have to file a stupid form, there's no big deal in that regard whatsoever. Now, but there is a big deal right here. If the donor were to die within the 5-year period, then a prorated portion of the contribution would be recaptured from an estate tax purpose. So if I give you $150,000 today, just stroke a check to you for $150,000 today, that is not included in my estate because I have given you a completed gift. I no longer have control of the asset. You can do whatever you want. You can sniff it up your nose. You can go to facilities. You can do whatever you want. I can't control it. Thus, it is out of my estate for estate tax purposes. That is not the same for Medicaid purposes. Just be advised. Some people try to spend down their estates to qualify for Medicaid. I never understood that. But in terms of estate tax purposes, if I give you a check for $150,000 today, it is not included. Now, for 529s, if I give you a check for $150,000 or let's just say $75,000, because I'm just trying to keep it in myself, and I die after 2 years, 3 of those years will be included back in my account, which would be $45,000 in my account for estate tax purposes. So if I pre-fund a 529 plan with $75,000 and I give it to you, and I die within those 5 years, a portion of that $75,000 will be back, what's called clawed back into my estate. Really not a big deal because, again, there's really no estate taxes anymore other than if you have an amazing amount of wealth, but just keep that in the back of your mind. All right, so I do want a couple things here. All right here, grandparent as 529 account owner. So this is a critical thing if you're a grandparent. A grandparent isn't required to be the account owner of his grandchild's 529 plan, but if he were, there are some additional considerations. First, as an account owner, a grandparent can retain some control over the money. Now, this is for a parent too, but I want to share with you from a grandparent's perspective here in just a second. And the reason is because they're closer to death. I probably shouldn't even say grandparent, but just for simplicity, you're retired. All your retirement plan's done. You're good to go. And you're like, I got some extra money. I really want my son to go to Georgia Tech, or I want my daughter to go to Tennessee Tech, whatever it is. And I really like to help them out. So I'm going to contribute to a 529 plan because I don't really need the money. All right. So you still maintain control, my friends, as a grandparent or as the parent too of the account. You still maintain control, and you'll have control over these contributions even though they aren't considered as part of your estate for estate tax purposes, a rare advantage in the state tax planning world. However, funds in a grandparent-owned 529 plan can still challenge your Medicaid eligibility. Again, don't know why you'd be filing for Medicaid, but so that's up to the state anyway. So you can contribute. Charlotte and Josh, we got all kinds of money. We're going to stroke a check for $150,000 to my grandkids, Joey's 529 plans, because we really want him to go to George Mason, whatever. And so we stroke a check for $150,000. We still control it. When we die, it is not included in our estate from the feds as a taxable portion of our estate. It's gone. However, if it turns out that old Joey starts selling crack on the streets and we don't want him having access to that money by no way do we want him having access to that cash, we can take the money out at our discretion. All right. And now if we do take the money out, it would be considered in our estate again. But there's no other account that's out there where you maintain control with the ability to take withdrawals, with the ability to change things. There's no other account like that, and yet it's not included in your estate. It's insane. So again, we control the account for old Joey. We watch Joey progress. He becomes a great upstanding citizen, joins the infantry. It gets a GI Bill. Turns out he doesn't need the money after all. We can change the beneficiary to whoever we want. We control it. We own it. It's ours. Joey becomes a meathead and we don't like the way he's looking, so we don't give him the money. We can change the beneficiary. When we both get hit by the proverbial bus because Joey got really mad and he ran us off the road, we is not included in our estate. There is no other account that allows that. Now, let's just say we run on hard times, I don't know, whatever. If house fell off because Susie Orman says the flood's going to come take your home away, and unless you have $20 million, you won't survive. So now we say, well, man, Joey, we'd love to have given you that money for college, but we can't afford it. So we're going to take that 529 money out. We had dropped 150,000 in there. Now it's growing to 200,000 just for simplicity. All right, we will pay tax and a penalty on that $50,000 of gains that we made. We don't pay tax or a penalty on their contributions, just on the gains. So a 10% penalty on the $50,000, that's $5,000, and tax as our income bracket, whatever that would be, we'll say 12%. So in that case, to have the ability to have unencumbered access to that big pot of money, not included in my estate, it grows tax-free if used for qualified education expenses, which are not just college, by the way. But on top of that, the worst case scenario is we pay a 10% penalty on the gain and income taxes on the gains as well. You just can't beat that, my friends. Now, if we take the money out and it's not a qualified education, just say, Joey, we really think it's a good idea for him to go to Rwanda and do some volunteer work. That might not be considered a qualified expense, but we're still going to pay it, but we're going to pay it from his 529 plan, but he's going to be the recipient of it. Well, he will have to pay 10% penalty and income tax on that amount on his tax bracket, which is probably nil because he's in college going to Rwanda for a missionary trip. So he will still have to pay 10% non-qualified distribution on any of the gains he takes out, because he's not using it for qualified educational expenses. But again, 10% penalty on the gains and income tax on the gains. We're talking pretty minimal for the opportunity to have it grow tax-free out of my estate. I'm telling you right now, it's wonderful. The drawback about a parent owning the 529 plan, or grandparent, is that now the 529 plan is not included in the kid's FAFSA. They do not have to report it as an account on the child's FAFSA, the free, I don't even know what FAFSA, free aid for federal student loans or some of that, the financial aid federal student application. Anyway, the thing you do to get financial aid, whatever the FAFSA is called, I can't off the top of my head, I don't remember. But anyway, so the kid doesn't have to report that as an asset on his FAFSA, so it's a hidden asset. However, when the grandkid or grandparent gives money to the kid as a recipient to receive that to pay tuition, then 50% of that income by the grandchild is reportable on the FAFSA as part of the expected family contribution. Conversely, if the parents own it, and the same thing is applicable to parents too, by the way, the parents, you own it, but it's not in your estate either, and you still control it. But generally speaking, the parents are further away from death, so they're further away of estate planning so much. But either way, if you own it, parents, is not included in your estate either, and yet you still have unencumbered control, just like the grandparents. Now, if you take income off the 529 plan, only 5.6% of your income, of the income from that distribution, is included in the FAFSA. So a pretty significant difference between the grandparents' FAFSA contributions of the income versus the parent. The best strategy they talk about here is just to delay taking any distributions from the 529 until the kid's basically in his senior or junior year, where he's no longer going to be filing for the FAFSA anymore, at least as an undergrad. So don't essentially take the student loans for the first couple of years. I actually talk about this in my book, The Tax Bomb and Retirement Accounts, and how the Roth IRA can help you. Same exact thing here. Take a distribution only after you're done filing for your federal aid, financial aid, financial application for federal student assistance. I think that's what FAFSA is. All right, so that's a wonderful thing. So a couple things going on there. But again, just don't take distributions out of the 529 until the kid's well beyond where he's going to file another FAFSA. Again, we talked about gift tax. Again, this is $14,000, but it was written in 2013, so it's not applicable, I don't think. If it's $15,000, just keep that in the back of your mind. Income tax. Again, withdrawals from a 529 plan are tax-free if they're used for qualified education. It's not just higher education anymore. It's secondary as well as private schools. Withdrawals from a 529 plan that are not used to pay qualified expenses are subject to 10% penalty and is taxed at the recipient's rate. by the account owner or beneficiary. So the income tax and the penalty is as well. Gift, we are talking about state tax. So again, the 529 plans are wonderful, my friends. There are all kinds of estate tax potential in here. There's no other account like it where you maintain control, but it's not included in your estate, where you can actually watch the progression of the person you want to be to make the beneficiary of the account. There's no other account like the 529. So I hope this helps. I'll do more things on the 529. I interviewed Joe Hurley, who did the Savings for College, just savingsforcollege.com. He sold that off. He's no longer the proprietor of it. He is now a maple syrup farmer up in upstate New York. But Joe Hurley is a wonderful man. I interviewed him, I think it's episode 15 of my podcast, the Josh Scanlon podcast. We actually didn't talk too much about 529s, but he's the guy who made me aware of the benefits of 529 plans. Joe Hurley, just another guy who should get a Nobel Prize for financial planning. So as always, like what you see here, subscribe, my friends, subscribe, comments, questions, concerns, thumbs up, and we'll see you next time at the Heritage Wealth Planning YouTube channel. Thanks, guys.